welcome to another episode of the Rubber Duck Radio. Once again, I will have been your host, Tim Williams, the lead developer, working with a crack team of talented developers trying to surf on top of the AI tools while continuing to maintain the highest quality software development output at the same time. With me again is Paul Mason, a full stack AI native from Washington. Welcome again, Paul!
Hey, Tim, guess we're making this a habit, huh?
Indeed, we are. Anyway, today I want to kick it off with the elephant in the room. AWS just announced over 14,000 layoffs, and the narrative they're going with is AI did it.
I heard about that, but also that it may end up being up to 30,000 people.
That's what the press releases say.
By the way you bring that up, sounds like you don't believe the narrative they're spinning about AI efficiency, huh?
I don't. I think it's AI related, but I think it's completely different than the narrative. Industry insiders are talking about how it's likely a strategic move to try and gain back some market share in the GPU AI computing race.
Yeah, I've been hearing that too. But it's funny, whenever I see AI is taking jobs in a headline, I immediately picture some exec in a Patagonia vest standing in front of a PowerPoint slide that just says efficiency.
Yeah, the truth is, it's AI related, but not in the way they want people to think. They're not automating thousands of engineers overnight, they're freeing up capital.
You mean for GPUs, right?
Exactly. The whole market right now is a race for compute dominance. OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, they've got the APIs developers actually like to use. AWS has Bedrock, which, let's be honest, doesn't.
Oh man, don't get me started. Bedrock feels like trying to launch a satellite through a ticketing system.
Right? If you've ever tried to spin up a quick LLM prototype with OpenAI, it's just you, an API key, and maybe 30 minutes. With Bedrock, it's IAM roles, tech extract permissions, waiting for access approval, and proof you're not some GPU hungry hobbyist.
So what you're saying is they didn't automate people out of jobs, they automated excuses.
Exactly. AI did it makes for a clean headline. But the truth is, AWS is trying to claw back relevance in a market that's moving faster than their internal bureaucracy.
Yeah, and it's not just AWS. Every company uses tech buzzwords to cover restructuring. Remember when digital transformation was the corporate way of saying we're downsizing?
Oh, yeah. Then it was cloud transformation. Now it's AI automation. It's the same pattern. New tech term, same financial playbook.
So this isn't about replacing workers with AI, it's about reallocating resources.
Bingo. They're slashing human capital in areas like management and middle operations to pump money into compute infrastructure. They're betting on long term GPU dominance, not short term coding efficiency.
Makes sense. Because AI can't yet replace most of what developers do the problem solving, the architecture, the last 20% that actually matters.
Exactly. AI is great at filling in the blanks, but it's blind to context. AWS knows that too. They're just using the narrative to justify a pivot.
So when they say AI is making us more efficient, what they really mean is we're shifting budget from people to power.
Yes, from payroll to power draw. That's the real story.
It's wild though, building all this AI infrastructure still requires humans, tons of them.
Right, but it's a different kind of human. Less policy layers, more infrastructure specialists. Less middle managers, more GPU engineers.
And if you're inside AWS right now, you're either working on that future or you're probably not working there anymore.
That's a bit dark, but yeah, pretty much.
So, bottom line, they're not victims of AI efficiency. They're victims of bad timing and worse developer experience.
Exactly. Bedrock just isn't competitive. It's like showing up late to the party with a new phone that can't run the same apps. AWS dropped the ball early, and now they're trying to spin the recovery as innovation.
And that AI ate our jobs narrative helps them stay in the cool kids club.
Yep, it's PR judo, redirect the blow to sound futuristic.
So, if you're a developer listening to this, the takeaway is don't buy the narrative at face value. Learn where your company's money is actually going.
Perfectly said. Because AI isn't taking your job, it's changing why your job exists.
Oof, that's tweetable. Or X-able? I'm still not on that train.
AI isn't taking your job, it's changing why your job exists.
Rubber Duck Radio 2020. So, what's your bet, Tim? Does AWS recover from this?
Honestly, maybe, but only if they rebuild Bedrock to match OpenAI's developer experience. Until then, they're going to keep bleeding mindshare to companies that actually understand how developers think.
Yeah, Bedrock needs less friction, not more compute.
Exactly. You can have all the GPUs in the world. If no one wants to use your API, you've already lost. AWS has always been focused on exposing the primitives, not making it easy to use those primitives.
And that's the real automation problem. Not that AI is replacing people, but that bad strategy is replacing leadership.
Amen to that. Think about it though. The easier you make it for developers to use AWS's services, the easier it is for AI to understand those services. When you provide things like frameworks, SDKs, use cases, documentation, and come out to meet developers where they're at, like OpenAI has, you'll capture the market even if your service is more expensive.
We see the same pattern with services like Stripe. They came and ate PayPal's lunch because they provided an excellent developer experience.
Right. Let's unpack Stripe as a case study before we circle back to AWS. Stripe set out of the gate with the developer as customer mindset. Their docs are legendary, live code snippets, clear quick starts, a smooth integration path, payroll developer inside of the case. That's undeal.
One dev I saw said, I certainly prefer to just deal with Stripe and move on. That sums up the difference. Less friction and developer joy equals market advantage.
Exactly. And what you and I build as developers, we build tools, libraries, prototypes, proofs of concept. When the barrier to entry is low, you experiment, you iterate. When it's high, IAM roles, 10-step onboarding, opaque pricing, you give up.
So, in terms of AI services, OpenAI provides a very drop in experience. You get an API key, a model, you send prompts. Meanwhile, with AWS's generative AI offering, Amazon Bedrock, you often hit more complexity. For example, choosing models, dealing with permissions, more setup.
That's the rub. AWS has the infrastructure, the GPUs, the data centers, but developer inertia matters. A startup or a side project won't necessarily pick what has the best hardware, they'll pick what they can move fastest on.
And devs bring peers. If you build a prototype on OpenAI in an afternoon, you show it to your team, you push it to production, that becomes a reference point. Then, when budget decisions come, which platform do we use? The platform with the momentum wins.
It ties right back to your last 20% classical problem. The heavy lifting isn't the model architecture, it's the orchestration around it. What SaaS companies that win understand is give me good defaults, help me get started, remove the friction. The rest is execution.
Exactly. And when you have that developer centric flywheel, you get network effects, more integrations, more community, more tools built around your platform, reinforcing your leadership.
So let's tie this back to AWS and their layoffs. They're pivoting heavy capital into compute, into infrastructure, into model services. But if their dev onboarding and developer experience don't keep pace, they'll face attrition of mindshare.
Which means the narrative where automating jobs via AI becomes a sideshow. The real risk for them is losing the developer community. And once you lose that, you're not just behind on jobs, you're behind on every layer of your stack.
Right, because if devs aren't using your APIs, your ops and model services become internal cost centers instead of growth engines. The layoffs then aren't just about efficiency, they're about catching up.
And you'll notice a pattern with companies that did win the AI platform race so far. They came with strong dev experience, straightforward SDKs, minimal friction, strong docs, and community.
So, the takeaway for our listeners who are developers or engineers when your company says we're using AI to automate, ask which platform, how fast can I prototype, how many steps before I get to a working result? Because the faster that goes, the more likely you're working on the winning side.
And when you see the job cut narrative tied to AI automation, you should ask, is this about replacing people with models or about reallocating budget into infrastructure and shifting developer momentum to someone else?
That's it. And if you're advising leadership, you say dev experience isn't a nice to have, it is the moat. Without it, you have the hardware, but no one building anything with it. All right, Paul, let's get into the nuts and bolts. You and I have been talking about how developer experience, DevX, is the battleground for these AI platforms. But how do you actually measure that? What are the metrics you want to watch if you're building a platform or working at one?
Good question. One big category, onboarding time. How long does it take a new developer to go from signing up for your API or platform to actually running something meaningful? Metric sites call this time to first win or time to first successful call. Nordic API.
Right. We like to call it time to hello world in production. If you have to jump through 5 screens, get IAM roles approved, read 300 pages of documentation just to get a token, you've lost momentum.
Exactly. And docs matter big time. Quality, completeness, clarity, they correlate directly with adoption rates. One article even put it like effective API docs cut onboarding time from weeks to hours.
So let me throw a list out. Onboarding time, error bug rates in first runs, documentation engagement, page views, bounce rates, Churn or dropout of developers who never make a call, feedback loop speed, how fast you respond when someone hits a wall.
Yeah, and don't forget developer satisfaction retention. If you keep pulling people back into endlessly wrangling your platform, they leave. Accessible, pun usable, pun credible are the three pillars of DevX.
Now, here's the twist. Because we're in AI land, there's another dimension agent experience, AX, or how well your API works for not just humans, but models agents. One recent blog calls it out. The same DevX metrics apply, but the volume and patterns change when LLMs are consumers.
Which circles back to our thesis. The platform that wins here isn't the one with the biggest GPUs, it's the one the devs and the models can use fastest and with the least friction.
Absolutely. Now, before we switch gears, let's move into a listener Q&A. We asked you folks out there, how do I hedge my career in this shifting terrain where companies are throwing AI automation at the problem, but really shifting roles and capital?
Great question. One from Jess in Austin. I'm a full stack engineer. Should I focus on learning LLM frameworks or stay deep in backend architecture?
My read, do both. Because what's happening is that those back-end architect roles are shifting. It's not about replacing you with a model, it's about changing why your role exists. Know how to build scalable infra, that's classic, and know how to hook into the model-centric layer, how to orchestrate agents, how to integrate RAG workflows. That gives you a hedge.
Another from Marcus in Seattle. If my company says it's using AI to automate jobs, what should I ask?
Great one. Here's what you ask. Which platform are we using? What's the onboarding time for a new dev in that platform? What is the first call success rate? How many devs have deployed something meaningful? VACs, how many have signed up? These reveal where the real investment is. Is it in tools and DevX or just in press releases?
And for freelancers or side projects, look for platforms that have low barrier to entry because that's where the momentum is. The easiest platform to adopt often wins.
Exactly. And if your platform has friction wiring services, proving you need access, IAM hoops, you're on the slow side of that momentum shift. All right, let's pivot from corporate strategy to something more personal the war at home. Cursor updates.
Oh man, I knew this was coming.
I swear, Cursor must have an internal goal like ship an update every time Tim opens a new file. I'll be deep in a prompt chain, everything's humming, and then boom, restart to update Cursor.
Yeah, I get that too. You restart, everything's smooth for about 5 minutes, and then another update drops. It's like whack a mole for productivity.
I've had days where I restarted it 5 times just trying to keep it current. I feel like I'm beta testing their continuous deployment pipeline in real time.
You are the QA department.
And here's the real kicker I organize my projects across full screens in macOS. One space for code, one for docs, one for test output, one for whatever chaos Paul's working on. Cursor reloads, and suddenly macOS decides that each full screen window is a new timeline of reality.
Yep, you get those black hole spaces, you swipe left, and it's just nothing. Cursor's gone to the big activity monitor in the sky.
Exactly. I'll be mid conversation with the AI, it's giving me something gold, and then poof, the update toast pops up. At this point, I've developed reflexes like a court stenographer. I copy the last few messages before every restart just in case.
The funny part is, Cursor is great. The autocomplete, the inline explainers, the diff tools, but they're iterating so fast it feels like working on a train that's still being welded together.
Yeah, I love it and I hate it at the same time. It's like the world's best coworker who insists on rebooting mid sentence to install firmware update speaker. Hold on, Tim, gotta optimize my embeddings real quick. Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, macOS is just like, you had 12 windows, but we thought we'd scatter them randomly across different spaces for fun.
So the real pro tip, don't put Cursor in full screen mode unless you enjoy scavenger hunts.
Or just accept that every time it restarts, you're going to play Find the Terminal. It's somewhere out there, possibly in another desktop dimension.
Honestly, they should gamify it. Cursor Update 1.5, the Hidden Terminal Quest. Coming soon to Steam Early Access. But seriously, I get why they're doing it. Cursor's shipping fast, integrating new models, new MCP hooks, constant bug fixes. It's just maybe schedule it once a day?
Yeah, one restart a day keeps the devs sane. 5 restarts a day makes you question the nature of continuous delivery.
Or at least make the restart button say, "We're sorry, Tim."
Restart to update cursor and your patience.
You know what though? I kind of respect it. Cursor's shipping velocity is insane. It's like they've taken move fast and break things and replaced break with reboot.
Exactly. I mean, we can't really complain. We're benefiting from the bleeding edge. But sometimes that edge actually cuts.
That's the trade off, right? In this new AI tooling world, everything's moving so fast that you can either be stable or current, but not both.
Yeah, and the users have to pick which pane they prefer, falling behind or constantly updating. Cursor's basically the poster child for continuous deployment culture.
It reminds me of when Chrome first started silently updating in the background. At first, everyone freaked out. Now we take it for granted. Cursor's just doing it out loud in mid sentence.
Would you like to finish that thought? Nope, I'm restarting.
But seriously, that's what separates modern dev tools from the old guard. OpenAI, Cursor, Replit, they're shipping daily because the underlying AI stack evolves daily. The models, the context window sizes, the MCP endpoints, they all change under the hood.
Right, and unlike the old IDE world where stability meant success, in this new world, responsiveness is success. If you're not adapting, you're obsolete.
It's like that line from the last 20% problem you wrote. The first 80% is table stakes, but the last 20% separates the good from the great. These tools are just trying to find that 20% before it changes shape again tomorrow.
Exactly. But as a developer, you feel the tension. You want the shiny new MCP integrations, but you also want your editor not to disappear every time you sneeze.
Right. AI pair programmer, meet your new role professional juggler.
You're balancing updates, context windows, prompt drift, API changes. It's chaos.
But maybe that's the price of being early. We're living through the awkward adolescent phase of AI dev tooling. Eventually it'll smooth out. Version pinning, slower release rings, maybe even stability channels.
Yeah, kind of like Node or VS Code. Once those ecosystems matured, you could trust updates again. Cursor will get there. Every great dev tool goes through its puberty.
Yeah, right now it's just in that voice cracking, reboot every hour stage.
Exactly. Let it grow.
So, moral of the story, fast shipping is awesome, but empathy for the user experience is what builds loyalty.
Yep, because when your users are restarting 5 times a day and still rooting for you, you're doing something right.
Amen. Now, if they could just make restart to update cursor come with a coffee refill prompt, we'd be gold.
Would you like to install version 0.17.4 and brew a latte? Perfect. All right, let's take it home with something a little more instructional. Daily work with the cursor agent. We've joked about all the restarts, but the truth is, when it is running, it's one of the most powerful tools in our stack.
Yeah, if you learn how to use it right, it's like having a junior dev that never sleeps, but you've got to keep it trained and organized.
Exactly. And that starts with your cursor rules file. Let's talk hygiene.
Oh, yeah, cursor rules hygiene is like brushing your teeth. Skip it for a few days, and suddenly everything's inconsistent. The agent starts hallucinating files that don't exist, and your agent is drifting like a ship in a storm.
Yeah, prompt plaque.
Gross, but accurate. The point is, your cursor rules file should evolve with your project, not trail behind it.
Right. It's tempting to just dump every bit of context in there, API keys, long architectural notes, dependency explanations, but that's not sustainable. The rules file should stay lean and high signal.
Exactly. Keep the stuff that defines how your agent should think, not everything it should know.
Here's the trick I've started using. Treat your rules file like the table of contents for your project knowledge. If a section grows too big, like front end state management patterns or API integration flow, move that to its own Markdown doc in docs.ai context and just link to it.
It keeps the rules lightweight, but still gives the agent breadcrumbs to follow. Cursor will actually read linked markdown files if you reference them properly.
Yep, and the agent can even help you maintain this. I'll literally ask it, hey, summarize everything in this file that's redundant with our current rules. It'll point out stuff that's stale or duplicated.
Yeah, the same way you'd have a teammate go through and refactor comments or documentation, you can have the AI do it.
Exactly. I treat it like a little daily hygiene checklist. One, after every big refactor, check that your cursor rules file still describes the project accurately. Smile. Two, once a week, trim dead or irrelevant rules. Three, whenever you add a new feature or vertical link to a new Markdown doc rather than stuffing it into the rules. And maybe one bonus, don't be afraid to rewrite the whole thing occasionally. Projects evolve, tone changes, priorities shift. A rules file from 3 months ago might be telling Cursor to optimize for speed when you now care about test coverage. Exactly. People treat these files like a holy text when they're really a living document. Cursor will only be as helpful as the accuracy of the context you give it.
Yep, garbage in, garbage out. Or worse, 5 versions of outdated context in, nothing useful out.
Been there. The bottom line, treat your cursor rules like code. version it, refactor it, keep it clean.
And use the agent as your documentation buddy. It's surprisingly good at summarizing, pruning, and linking sections if you just ask.
Exactly. That's the power of the tool, not just generating code, but managing the context around your code. Line during the merge past.
For anyone listening, if Cursor is part of your daily workflow, spend as much time maintaining your context as you do your code. The cleaner your cursor rules, the smarter your agent becomes.
Amen to that. Cursor's like any good teammate. If you keep them informed, they'll do great work. If you feed them old specs and half-baked instructions, you'll spend your day fixing misunderstandings.
Or restarting 5 times.
Yeah, that too.
All right, that's a wrap for today's episode of Rubber Duck Radio.
Keep your projects clean, your cursor rules cleaner, and remember, AI isn't taking your job, it's just waiting for your next commit.
Beautiful. See you next time.